April 9th, 1987. London Lighthouse AIDS Hospice. 2:47. Princess Diana walked into a room where no royal had ever dared to go. The cameras followed her every step as she approached the bed of Ivan Cohen, a 32-year-old man dying of AIDS, a disease the world barely understood and desperately feared. In that moment, Diana made a choice that would shock the globe, challenge centuries of royal protocol, and save countless lives. She removed her gloves, extended her bare hand, and touched Ivan's skin. The photograph of that handshake would travel around the world in hours, but the impact would last forever. In 5 seconds, Diana didn't just touch a dying man, she touched the conscience of humanity. But what the cameras didn't capture was the conversation that followed, and the promise Diana made to Ivan that would define the rest of her life, the world before Diana's touch. 1987, the year of fear. In 1987, AIDS was a death sentence wrapped in terror and ignorance. The disease had been identified only 6 years earlier, and misinformation was rampant. People believed you could catch AIDS from toilet seats, from sharing utensils, from breathing the same air as an infected person. AIDS patients were pariahs, families abandoned them, friends stopped visiting, healthcare workers wore hazmat suits to deliver meals, funeral homes refused to handle their bodies, even touching their belongings was considered dangerous. The British tabloids fed the hysteria with headlines like AIDS, the killer plague, and the gay death. Politicians called for quarantine camps. Religious leaders proclaimed it God's punishment for sin. Into this climate of fear and hatred, the palace announced that Princess Diana would visit London Lighthouse, Britain's first dedicated AIDS hospice. The announcement caused chaos. Palace staff panicked. "Your Royal Highness," they pleaded, "this is too dangerous. We don't know enough about transmission." The press was skeptical. "This is obviously a publicity stunt," wrote one columnist. "The princess will maintain a safe distance." Medical experts were divided. Some supported Diana's visit, as important for public education. Others warned it was reckless. But Diana had made up her mind months earlier, after receiving a letter that changed everything. The letter that changed everything. December 1986, the plea for help. The letter arrived on Kensington Palace letterhead, marked personal and confidential. It was from Adrian Ward Jackson, a friend who had become one of London's leading AIDS activists. "Diana," the letter read, "I'm writing to ask you to do something that may seem impossible, but which could save thousands of lives. I work with young men who are dying alone, abandoned by their families, treated like lepers by society. They've lost everything, their health, their dignity, their hope, but they haven't lost their humanity. These men need the world to see that they're not monsters or criminals. They're someone's sons, brothers, friends. They're human beings deserving of compassion, not fear. You have a power that no politician, no doctor, no activist possesses. You have the power to change hearts and minds with a single gesture. Would you consider visiting our hospice? Not for a photo opportunity, but to truly meet these men, to show the world that they deserve love, not hatred? I know I'm asking you to risk everything. Your reputation, your safety, your standing with the palace. But I also know that you've never turned away from people who needed you. Please, Diana, help us show the world that love is stronger than fear." Diana read the letter 3 times. By the 3rd reading, she was crying. That night, she called Adrian. "When can I come?" But preparing for the visit would prove more challenging than Diana imagined. The battle with the palace. January-March 1987, fighting for permission. When Diana announced her intention to visit the AIDS hospice, she met fierce resistance from the palace establishment. Sir Robert Fellows, the Queen's private secretary, was horrified. "Ma'am, this is absolutely out of the question. The risks are too great and the association would be inappropriate to show compassion to dying people." Diana shot back. "The monarchy must maintain its dignity and distance from controversial issues." "Dying people are not a controversial issue, Robert. They're a humanitarian crisis." Prince Philip was even more blunt. "Diana, you're being naive. This disease affects a very particular population. Associating yourself with them will damage the crown's reputation." "Good," Diana replied. "Maybe the crown's reputation needs some damage, if it means saving lives." The Queen herself called Diana to Windsor for a private meeting. "Diana," the Queen said carefully, "I understand your compassion, but you must consider the broader implications. The monarchy has survived for centuries by avoiding associations that could be seen as endorsing certain lifestyles. I'm not endorsing anything except basic human decency, Your Majesty. The public won't see it that way. They'll see you touching these people, and they'll assume." "They'll assume what?" That I care about suffering human beings? The Queen was quiet for a long moment. Do what you feel you must, Diana, but understand that there will be consequences. Diana understood. She was choosing compassion over protocol, humanity over hierarchy. The visit was scheduled for April 9th, 1987. The night before, April 8th, 1987. Diana's secret preparation. The night before her historic visit, Diana did something that stunned her staff. She went to St. Bartholomew's Hospital to meet privately with Dr. Jonathan Weber, one of Britain's leading AIDS researchers. "Doctor," Diana said, "I need you to tell me everything. Not the sanitized version the palace wants me to hear. The truth." Dr. Weber was surprised by her directness. "Your Royal Highness, what specifically do you want to know?" "I want to know if I can catch AIDS by touching someone, by holding their hand, by hugging them." "No ma'am, absolutely not. AIDS is transmitted through blood, sexual contact and sharing needles. Casual contact poses no risk whatsoever." "You're certain?" "Completely certain." Diana nodded. "Then tomorrow, I'm going to prove that to the world." But Dr. Weber had more to tell her. "Ma'am, there's something else you should know. These men, they're not just dying from AIDS. They're dying from isolation, from shame, from the world's rejection. Your visit could give them something medicine can't, hope and dignity." Diana's eyes filled with tears. "Then I'll give them everything I have." That night, Diana's dresser found her practicing handshakes in her mirror, removing her gloves over and over again. "Ma'am," the dresser asked, "what are you doing?" "Preparing to change the world," Diana replied. The historic moment, April 9th, 1987, 2:45 p.m., the moment that changed everything. Diana arrived at London Lighthouse in a simple blue dress, accompanied by a small entourage and a pack of skeptical journalists. The world's media had gathered to witness what they expected would be a brief, distant royal visit. They were wrong. Adrian Ward Jackson met Diana at the entrance. "Your Royal Highness, thank you for coming. The patients are so honored." "The honor is mine," Diana replied. "Are you ready to make history?" As they walked through the hospice, Diana stopped at every bed, every chair, every corner where a patient waited. She spoke to each man individually, asking about their lives, their families, their dreams. Then they reached Ivan Cohen's room. Ivan was 32, an artist who had been diagnosed 2 years earlier. He was skeletal thin, his skin covered in Kaposi's sarcoma lesions. He had been abandoned by his family and most of his friends. He was dying alone. "Ivan," Adrian said softly, "I'd like you to meet someone special." Ivan looked up and gasped. "Princess Diana." "Just Diana," she said with a smile. "I'm here to meet you." The cameras positioned themselves around the room. The moment had arrived. Diana approached Ivan's bedside. Protocol dictated that she should maintain distance, perhaps offer a few kind words, and move on. Instead, Diana did something unprecedented. She sat down on Ivan's bed. The room fell silent. Cameras clicked. Hearts stopped. Then Diana did something even more shocking. The handshake heard round the world, 2:47 p.m., 5 seconds, that changed history. Diana looked directly at Ivan and said, "Would you mind if I held your hand?" Ivan's eyes filled with tears. You want to touch me? If you're comfortable with it." Ivan nodded, unable to speak. Diana slowly, deliberately removed her gloves. The gesture was intentional, symbolic, revolutionary. She extended her bare hand to Ivan. He reached out with his own trembling hand. Their skin touched. The cameras exploded. Flashbulbs popped. The world watched in amazement as a Princess of Wales held hands with a dying AIDS patient, skin to skin, without fear, without hesitation, without gloves. For 30 seconds they sat like that, a dying man and a princess, holding hands in defiance of fear and ignorance. "Thank you," Ivan whispered. "You don't know what this means." "Yes, I do," Diana replied. "It means you're not alone anymore." But what Ivan said next made Diana promise to change everything. The promise. 2:48 p.m., the conversation that defined Diana's mission. As they continued holding hands, Ivan spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "Princess, Diana, most people won't touch us, won't come near us. They think we're disgusting, that we deserve this because of how we lived." Diana squeezed his hand gently. "You don't deserve this. No one deserves this. My family. They won't even visit. They're ashamed of me." "Then they're the ones who should be ashamed, not you." Ivan's tears were flowing freely now. Will you help the others, the ones who come after me? Will you show them that someone cares?" Diana looked around the room at the cameras, the reporters, the skeptical faces. She realized this moment was bigger than just her and Ivan. It was about every AIDS patient in the world. "I promise you, Ivan. I will spend the rest of my life making sure the world knows that people with AIDS deserve love, not fear, compassion, not hatred, dignity, not shame. Really, You have my word. Ivan smiled for the first time in months. Thank you, Princess. You've given me something to hold on to. As Diana stood to leave, she leaned down and kissed Ivan's forehead. The gesture was captured by every camera in the room, but the cameras couldn't capture what Diana whispered in his ear. You are loved, you matter, and I will never forget you. The immediate aftermath. April 9th, 1987, 4 p.m. The world reacts. Within hours, the photograph of Diana's handshake was transmitted around the globe. Television networks interrupted regular programming to show the footage. Newspapers scrambled to remake their front pages. The reactions were immediate and intense. Support. Princess Diana has done more for AIDS awareness in one afternoon than most campaigns do in years. Dr. Anthony Fauci. This is leadership at its finest. The princess has shown the world what compassion looks like. Mother Teresa. Diana has just saved thousands of lives by showing that AIDS patients deserve our love, not our fear. Sir Elton John. Criticism. This is reckless behavior that endangers the princess and sets a dangerous precedent. The monarchy should not involve itself in such controversial issues. Palace Insider. What message does this send about traditional values? Religious leader. But the most important reactions came from AIDS patients themselves. The patient response. April 10th, 1987. Letters pour in. Within 24 hours of Diana's visit, London Lighthouse was flooded with letters from AIDS patients around the world. Dear Princess Diana, I saw you on television holding Ivan's hand. I have AIDS too, and no one has touched me in 2 years. Thank you for showing the world that we're still human. Michael, San Francisco. Your Royal Highness, my family threw me out when I was diagnosed. Seeing you sit on that bed gave me hope that maybe I'm still worth loving. James, Manchester. Princess, I'm 19 and I have AIDS. I thought my life was over, but seeing your kindness made me want to keep fighting. David, Edinburgh. The letters kept coming. Hundreds, then thousands. Each one told the same story. Diana's touch had given them hope, but the real test would come in the weeks and months following. The global impact. May-December 1987. The ripple effect. Diana's handshake created a ripple effect that spread around the world. Medical breakthrough. Hospital visits to AIDS patients increased by 300% in the month following Diana's visit. Healthcare workers reported feeling more comfortable treating AIDS patients after seeing the princess's fearless interaction. Family reconciliation. Support groups reported a significant increase in family members reaching out to AIDS-infected relatives they had previously abandoned. Donation surge. AIDS charities saw donations increase by 400% in the 6 months following Diana's visit. Political change. The British government increased AIDS research funding by £2 million and launched a public education campaign featuring Diana's message of compassion. Global awareness. World leaders began visiting AIDS facilities in their own countries following Diana's example. But Diana wasn't finished. She had made a promise to Ivan, and she intended to keep it the follow-through. 1987-1997, a decade of dedication. Diana's visit to London Lighthouse wasn't a one-time publicity stunt. It was the beginning of a 10-year mission that would define her legacy. She became patron of 6 AIDS charities and visited AIDS facilities around the world, from New York to Brazil to India to South Africa. In each location, she repeated her London Lighthouse performance, removing her gloves, shaking hands, sitting on beds, holding dying patients, showing the world that AIDS patients deserve dignity. Her most powerful moment came in 1991, when she visited Casey House in Toronto and held a crying AIDS patient while he died, whispering comfort in his ear as cameras captured the scene. Diana taught the world that AIDS was not about judgment, said Dr. Peter Piot, former director of UNAIDS. It was about humanity. By the time of Diana's death in 1997, HIV/AIDS stigma had dramatically decreased in countries where she had visited. Infection rates began declining as people became more willing to get tested and seek treatment. The tragic irony. August 31, 1997, the legacy lives on. When Princess Diana died in Paris, AIDS activists around the world mourned the loss of their greatest champion. At her funeral, Ivan Cohen, who had survived much longer than expected after their meeting, was given a place of honor among the mourners. She kept her promise, he said through tears. She never forgot us. The tragic irony is that Diana, who had fearlessly touched AIDS patients when the world was terrified of the disease, died in a car crash, a reminder that courage doesn't always protect us, but it always inspires others. The truth revealed. Diana's handshake with Ivan Cohen on April 9, 1987, was more than a photo opportunity. It was a calculated act of rebellion against fear, ignorance, and prejudice. In 5 seconds, she accomplished what years of medical education and public health campaigns had failed to do. She showed the world that AIDS patients were human beings deserving of love and compassion. Her touch didn't just comfort one dying man, it comforted millions of people living with HIV/AIDS around the world who finally felt seen, valued, and loved. The photograph of that handshake became one of the most important images of the 20th century, not because it showed a princess, but because it showed humanity at its best. Sometimes the most powerful weapon against hatred is a simple human touch. Epilogue. The continuing impact. Today, HIV/AIDS activists still cite Diana's handshake as the moment when global attitudes began to change. The stigma hasn't disappeared entirely, but Diana's legacy lives on in every AIDS patient who receives compassionate care, every family that stands by their infected loved one, every person who chooses love over fear. Ivan Cohen lived for 6 more years after meeting Diana, longer than anyone expected. He spent those years as an AIDS activist, telling everyone who would listen about the day a princess held his hand and changed his world. When he died in 1993, his final words were reportedly, "Thank you, Diana. You kept your promise." Some touches heal more than bodies. They heal hearts, minds, and the world itself.